Okay, so we're going to start using Postman to work with our API. So before we get started, I want to get things set up and show you how to set up your environment and make sure you're ready for the next section. So if you're not familiar with what Postman is at all, Postman is basically a platform that allows us to debug and test our API. So we can actually make requests from Postman to these URLs here, get back responses, we can send data, and a whole bunch more. So somebody may ask, why do we need something like Postman if we can just go to this URL and see this response? Well, Postman gives us one interface and it allows us to do much more than just send simple requests here. So for example, let's say we have a protected route, and in order to access this route, a user needs a JSON web token that needs to be sent in the header. Well, we're limited in what we can do here. We can't actually send a token from this route here. So we can do all of that from Postman, and we have one interface to do everything. So in theory, you don't actually need Postman. You won't be able to debug the way we're going to be doing things, so I would highly recommend it, but it's not absolutely necessary. In theory, you could start making these requests from the front end, but it's just not recommended. Postman is an awesome platform to test before you start. So let's go ahead and get this downloaded. So this is the website, postman.com. They do, I believe, have an online version, so a browser-based version of this, but I like to download it and set it up on my computer. So I was looking for the download link, and apparently it's all the way at the bottom of the page here. So if anything, just Google up Postman download, and it should take you to this link. So it's all the way down here, get Postman. I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. So you should see this section right here. So this should take you to postman.com/download. So whatever operating system you have, just go ahead and download it for that. I'm going to use Windows here, and I actually have Postman already set up, so I'm not going to go through this process, but just download it, go through the installation process, and just create an account with them. You'll be prompted for all of this. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to do a search for Postman on my Windows computer. So you should see an icon somewhere when you download it. I'm just going to pull mine up here. Just search for it somewhere in your computer, or that icon will be on your desktop. But once you find it, you should see this interface here. So you should have been prompted to create an account. If you didn't, you can probably find that right here, I believe. You can just add an account or create a new one. Go ahead and set something up here, and this should be the page that you see. So to get started, the first thing we need to do is create a workspace. So by default, I believe it already creates one for you, but I want to start fresh here, and I just want to create a new workspace. So I'm just going to do tutorial or tutorials like that. And this is my workspace. I can invite team members, so different people can actually help me test this API. So this is the cool platform that we get. You can work with teams. It just gives you an entire interface here. So let's go ahead and create the workspace. And once we create a workspace, we need to create a collection. So in this case, a collection will be the website that I'm working with. So a collection is simply a collection of URLs that you're testing. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this plus button right here. So I'm on collections, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit just in case it's too zoomed out. I guess that's all it lets me do. So let's go ahead and hit that plus icon. Let's do new collection. And I just want to rename this collection. So I'm just going to do dev search here. So let's go ahead and rename it dev search. So these are going to be all the routes that I'm testing for dev search. So in the collection, I can start adding requests here. So requests are going to be those URLs. So I'm going to go to add request, and here we go. So it tells me the parameter here. We can do get, post, put, patch, delete, and all these other requests. So at this point, I just want to show you how to make some simple requests, and then later on we'll move to actually sending post requests and sending data in the headers or in the body. So this is what I meant right here when I said that we have a lot more access to what we can do with our API. So at this point, let's go ahead and just take this link here. I'm going to copy the link, and I'm going to put this into Postman. So we'll paste that in, and we just want to send a simple get request and get back this data and see what's happening. So if I go to send here, well, first of all, I actually want to save it. So if I save it, it's going to save all the settings here. I'm going to close out all these extra tabs here, and let's go ahead and hit send. So when I send this request, we get back this response. So it's the same thing that we saw with what Django gives us. So it's all this data. We see that the request was successful. We can see the status code here. We can look at the data differently, and basically we can just test out the route here. So if I wanted to go get a specific route, I can actually create another request here. So let's go ahead and actually name this. So I'm going to save that. Well, actually it's already saved. So let's go ahead and change this. So I'm going to say this is a get request. So we set the method, and I'm going to say this is the route to get all our projects. So we'll save that, and let's create a new request. So we'll just do add request. This will also be a get request, and we're just going to say project here. So I'm going to rename it project, and then I'll just do / like ID. So that's just going to be the name, so I can see the actual name of the request. Now to actually get a project, I could just paste in that same route, and then I want to grab a URL here. So let's go ahead and grab the first project. So I'm going to take this ID here, copy that, and we're going to paste that in. And sometimes if you don't add a / it could give you an issue. So if anything, just add that to be safe. If you have an issue, just make sure you add it. I don't know why it won't let me zoom in. I really want to make sure that we're more zoomed in. I'm at the max right now, so I guess that's all we can do. So here we see the request for a single object here. So I'm going to save that, and now we have 2 requests. So there's one other thing that I wanted to show you. So if we look at these 2 requests here, you notice that the domain is the same. So if we ever wanted to create another endpoint, we would have to either copy and paste that, or we'd have to write out the entire URL and then the actual route. So this value right here should never change. So what we're going to do is create a variable. So all we have to do is access that variable, and that URL will be placed in there. So we don't have to type out an entire domain. So for this, we need to create something called an environment, and this is where we would put our variables. So an environment is just a collection of key value pairs, and we can store different variables in here. So because I'm so zoomed in, here are my environments. I can see them like this here. At this point, I have none, but because I'm so zoomed in, I can't actually see an icon here that's supposed to be there. So I'm going to zoom out for a second. I'm going to change my desktop here, and we should see this eye icon. So it's just like an eyeball. Go ahead and click on that, and let's go to environment, not globals, and let's create a new environment. So I believe this is going to be specifically for this workspace. So we're just going to say dev search like that. So that's our environment. And let's go ahead and create it. So now I'm going to zoom back in. So I just wanted to show you that eye icon right there. I'll zoom back in, and now we are creating our environment. So the variable here, let's just say URL. So I'm just going to do a capital URL. That's going to be the name of it. And let's just paste in port 8000. So let's take this right here. So we won't take that closing / and we'll go into the environment, and we'll set the initial value, and we'll also set the current value. So this is what this variable will be. So we set a simple variable, that's it. So if I save this, we can start using this variable in these endpoints. So let's go ahead and go back to projects here. And now that we created an environment, we need to first select the environment that we're working in. And now we have access to that variable. So we can just go in here, and let's just do double curly brace, and let's just do URL. So remember that we also need that / because that root URL didn't have that. So this is all we need from now on. So we just type in URL. It tells me what the values are. I don't know if you can see that, but it just tells me it's port 8000, and that's it. So if anything, I'll try to zoom in when I'm editing this. So if I send this request, now everything's working. So I still get back that initial response here, and everything checks out. So if I go in here, go to projects, I can also take out all of this, create the variable, and we'll just do URL. And because I'm in that environment, it's going to work. So if I send that, we get back that same request. So if I switch out of this environment and try to send this, it's not going to work because it doesn't know what this variable is. So make sure you select the environment, and then you can access any URL there. So if I want to modify that or add more variables, I can do that. So that's it. We just sent 2 requests. We made a workspace, we made a collection, and we added a couple of requests with some variables. So let's go ahead and move on to the next video.